everybody. Hi. Hi. Thank you for joining our session. It's the last one of the day, and you've probably heard us giggling this whole time. We're
trying to be entertaining and energetic, but we'll see.
Yeah, glad to see all of you here. So my name is Natasha Davis. I am an account manager working with law clients. And
I am Beverly Mindle. I've also had the opportunity to work really closely with our law clients as well as some clients in some of our other verticals. And we're excited today to talk to you about kind of the changing APA standards.
So a couple of things on our agenda today. We're going to briefly go over those standards. Just point out a few of the ones that we think really affects you in the assessment realm of things. Of course, we're going to talk about how ExamSoft can help you navigate changes through our categories and reporting features, and then how you can use our reports and the data from those assessments to help meet the standards and provide to the accrediting bodies.
And speaking on that point, kind of with that student-focused idea in mind, being able to provide that feedback to students, this is a way to differentiate yourself in all sorts of ways. It's a way for you to be able to prepare students for the bar, understand what they know and what they don't, and so kind of prepare for that bar passage. It's also a way for you to be able to help with recruitment efforts, to be able to say all the personalized feedback and options and things that you're giving to your students, and to differentiate yourself. And sort of before we get started into kind of all of the changes that are taking place, we wanted to take a brief moment to explain kind of who we are and what we believe in. So basically, we are ExamSoft. We work with over 800 institutions. Our core is still law and bar, and so a core of what we do is legal education. And we give millions of exams a year. We're going to give over 5 million exams by the end of this year, or expected to. And so a lot of us know ExamSoft is that secure solution that locks down the computer and students take that big summative exam at the end. And while we do have a platform to help with those secure summative exams, and we're very proud of that platform and that flexibility, what we really do believe in is that we want to help you with assessment. And that does not mean only that secure summative exam, it means assessment overall. Because we really believe that that's what drives learning, and that's what drives, getting better. So students want feedback from an assessment. You give an assessment, it can be, your take-home exam, your final, your midterm, your quizzes, a brief, any sort of activity, whatever you want to assess your students on. And then we can provide the students with personalized feedback after you somehow grade or assess the students. And that gives the student knowledge of how they're doing. They can understand what they know and what they don't, and they are empowered in their own learning and can get help if there's areas that they don't understand. And of course, faculty want feedback as well. They want to know that students have understood the material, that want to know where they're doing. And faculty sometimes also want to take risk. They may be used to their traditional lecture, but maybe they're considering, hey, maybe I want to make a project-based for this portion of what I want to teach, or maybe I want to do something else. Well, in order to take that risk, you really need to make sure you understand, did students learn what they needed to afterwards, right? So this allows faculty to try something new without the same level of risk, because they're able to tell at the end, did students still get to where I want them to be? And then finally, administrators want to assess as well. They want to know overall, how is the program doing? You guys might be familiar with curriculum mapping, so they're mapping the curriculum. It's one thing to say, well, this course is teaching this outcome and this outcome and this outcome, but it's another to say this course taught these outcomes this many times, and this is how the students are doing overall across these outcomes in all the courses. Okay, well, I know that for some reason these outcomes are being taught really well, but there's a lot of weight on them, and these other outcomes aren't being taught as frequently as they should, and they can kind of readjust the program in order to make sure that at the end you've got students that are ready to become lawyers. They're ready to be ready to practice. They're practice ready. So I'm going to want the same kind of feedback as well. And this year, speaking of assessment, we actually had our first ever ExamSoft Assessment Conference, which was wonderful. It was in Lexington, Kentucky. And we had clients from all over the country come and attend, and they came from all sorts of walks of life. We've got lawyers, we've got medical schools, nursing schools, dental, undergrad, K through 12, all coming together to talk about assessment and how they're doing assessment. And it's really cool to see people that are doing assessment completely differently talk about how, a pharmacy school is talking about how they do something, and the law school is like, oh, I could do that too. That would work for this topic. And kind of being able to share cross-collaboratively. Because educators really care about educating kids, and you can get ideas from all sorts of people. And so we're really excited about this conference. We had 22 client presentations, including one talking about how the law school was talking about how they were using standards to connect to the bar exam standards to predict students' performance and to help with remediation. And so it's really exciting to hear what clients are doing and how they're trying to help with assessment. And I say clients, because clients and non-clients alike were attending.
So we know that the ABA has some changes coming. It's a topic of discussion that's been around for quite some time. I know we talk about it a lot at ExamSoft. So here are 3 of the standards that really resonate with us. And I'm not going to read those in detail, but I will kind of gloss over. So Standard 204, they're holding the schools accountable for providing evidence that they're making changes to their curriculum and that they're able to identify their strengths and their weaknesses within their program. Standard 314 requires schools to do more frequent testing in formative and summative assessments. So right now, a lot of the law schools, are just doing that one big stakes exam at the end of the semester, but it poses a problem for students if they fail the class or don't do well, and then they're on to the next course. There's really no way for them to find out what they did wrong and shift gears in preparation for what's to come further on in their JD career. And then finally, Standard 315 requires the schools to now have learning objectives or learning outcomes, and then showing how those outcomes are improving the changes in the curriculum. So it's an iterative process. You come up with these outcomes, you test them, and then of course you need to go back and revisit them and fine-tune them along the way. So that's really, in a nutshell, what it comes down to. But what does that really mean for assessments? So as I mentioned, you need to identify your learning outcomes and then be able to track them, gather data on them, and find out what's working, what's not. Also, more frequent exams. So some schools are starting to adopt the midterm model, and one of the things that resonated with me with the client that spoke at the EAC conference and also at the academic support conference that we ran in Chicago was that instead of giving the midterm right in the midpoint of the semester, give it at about the 5 or 6 week mark. So that way, the student can identify areas that they're not doing well in, and it gives them enough time to alter their study habits. It gives them enough time to really think what they need to focus on instead of trying to study everything and cram. I mean, we all know that that's never a good idea.
And it's not that the midterm timing is necessarily bad, doing it halfway through, but sometimes it takes faculty a few weeks to grade it.
Right.
Well, if it takes them a few weeks to grade it, by the time they give the grades back, students have already established study patterns and habits. So if you can get them feedback frequently and fast, then it's fine to assess when it makes sense to assess. But if you're not going to get them that feedback, then if you can't get it done fast, then make sure you time it so students have enough time to make a change. So it's not just a summative assessment of what did they know. It is a formative assessment as well, so that they can actually use that and make changes.
Exactly. And then finally, your learning outcomes. You've established them, you're testing them, but now that you have all of that data, you really need to take a look at it and find areas of improvement. I mean, we constantly want to do better. We constantly want our students to strive to do better. So the learning outcomes and the data tied to it would really help. So by show of hands, how many of you do this now? All right, does anybody care to share what they're doing at their school?
I use responders, and I have immediate feedback.
Oh, okay, in the in-class clickers.
They used to call them clickers, but they're not clickers anymore. They do it with their phone, the computers. But I
Tell them my age.
you can give them a pre-test before you start session, you put in a test right in class, and immediately, not only do they know what I know,
Right.
you know, sometimes we teach and we pat ourselves in the back because we had a great lecture, but we don't know how many people, how many students actually learn anything. So I found Ponder's to be very useful. You don't have to run scantrons. It's right there. It gives you everything. It gives you by serials, values, everything.
Awesome. Anybody else care to share?
We use midterms at Pepperdine. We have for quite a while. And then we also use a lot of clickers in the classroom, so similar type of setup, so students can identify where they're struggling, and the instructors can identify if this class as a whole is struggling, rather than just circle back on a topic. But we're really looking to move more towards that, like bi-weekly quizzes maybe, or other assessment methods for gauging earlier than the midterm whether students are starting to struggle. So.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to share? Yeah.
They get, while I do, in the first class, we do a pre-test that's not graded, but I grade it,
Like a
comment on it,
diagnostic,
and give it
yeah.
back to them. And then every week, they have a low-value assignment that they do that I get back to them by the following week. And we also do in class, where they'll usually pair up, and we as a class actually evaluate those at the end of the class period.
Awesome.
So when you say we as a class, is it like peer grading, or is it, what does that
We
mean?
sit and talk about what they did and so I design, so they all have a different hypothetical in their team. So they're working on different things, and then we reserve time at the end of the class to come back and they talk about, you know, what they found or what they think about it, and then we talk about, you know, did you think of this? What would have you done differently? So it's me and peer. That
It's important.
So the slide is literally asking though about a broader curricular assessment, right? In other words, so certainly in the course, I think these are all tremendous. I'm really trying to implement them myself, but it's a harder question maybe whether we're looking back whether the course did what it said it was going to do, right? On a curricular level.
Well, there's various levels, and that's actually a great point. So you have your course level, certainly, and then you have your curricular, your program level. And then, I mean, I've also seen it broken down, like tracked by professors. I've seen some schools even identify how certain professors are teaching. So I think you can really break it down a number of ways. But is your school?
Well, so we're trying to, because we've got a site visit coming in about 1.5 years, and so we're thinking, we want to show that we're moving in this path. Now,
Right.
we're not going to get done with it by then, but we'd like to tell the ABA we're implementing this process. So.
Exactly, and I think that's the place that a lot of the law schools are at. If they have not already implemented some sort of learning outcomes or ways to assess their students more frequently than what's been done in the past, they're kind of at that same place where you know it needs to be done, but you just quite don't know how to get it there, or are we doing the right thing? So that's why we're here.
And so I guess the next question is, kind of taking this question a little bit further, is if you think about it at the programmatic level, not just at the course level. It sounds like we've got a lot of amazing assessments going on at the course level. How many people are feeling or have hesitations about doing this at a programmatic level?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
So, I would say most schools probably do this already, right? So, we know what our learning outcomes are because we know what our students' grades are. We probably do need to assess more frequently. Especially the upper level classes, a lot of times their grade is their final. I mean, it's law school, so, all law schools probably need to rethink that. And I think we do try to improve our curriculum based on how our students are doing and what the trends are in the legal community. Like there's always new classes. In fact, there's just one going on right now next door on using advanced legal practice software and stuff, teaching that as a 2- and 3-credit class for their students. So I don't understand the question about hesitation.
Well, so I'm going to challenge you first of all,
Okay.
and then I'll have people respond directly to your question. But you said something that resonated to me. That's something that I want to distinguish. Grades does not equal performance on learning outcomes. Because I could say I got an 80 on my assessment. I got a B. What does that mean? Maybe I did not learn the rules at all. I don't understand the law. But I can do analysis. I can give you an argument that's logical and that makes sense. Maybe I understand certain rules, but I don't understand other rules. Maybe I can't issue spots. I got an 80, and I hit certain things and didn't hit other things. What things did I hit and what did I not? I don't know. Yes, there might be comments. Yes, there might be other things. But I don't know how I've done on those learning outcomes. And so you give back the grades, and yes, we know how many students are doing well or poorly, but we don't know. How are my students doing on issue spotting and L1? How are they? We know grades, but they're not quite the same thing. An individual faculty might know how they're doing on the course, but is that reported up? Can you say that issue spotting across all of my clickers, across all of my assessments, across everything? This kid right here, I know there's no kid, but this kid right here is at 80% on that, but they're at 100% on something else. Can I say where the breakdown is to average to an 80 for that individual kid? And that's something I don't think grades can quantify. It just tells you overall in the course across everything I want you to accomplish here. And then did anyone want to respond about the hesitation? Why do people still feel hesitation? Oh, I'm going to have you go first because I know you raised your hand before.
Well, this ties together a lot of things you've just been talking about, but I think the hesitation is we don't want to spend the rest of our lives grading papers. And so the answer to that is multiple choice. But right now, multiple choice will give me feedback about whether students can understand and apply the rule. But unlike an essay, it won't tell me, can they spot issues, do they know the importance of the facts, where their weaknesses are. And so the big breakthrough for me is when I'm going to be able to have multiple choice questions that will tell me whether they're picking up those skills and not just whether they know the content.
Does anyone have a response to that?
No, my response is that this is when I started doing my clicker stuff 8 years ago, that's exactly what my faculty colleagues said. What do you mean clickers? You cannot test essays on clickers. It has to be multiple choice. How does that tell me that in fact they're knowing how to analyze, that they know how to extract a rule? How those clickers do that? And there was hesitation. But to this day, every time I give a presentation to the faculty, it always ends up, but this is the way I do it. Now this is the way I've been doing it for 20, that's where the hesitation is. This is the way I've been doing it for 25 years, and it's been good. My graduates and my students have gone and gotten their degrees, and they have succeeded. So that is where the hesitation is. We are in, at least in the legal, the teaching, libraries, I don't know anything about IT, but at least we are at a situation, I think, where we have to start defining how we teach. Is the Socratic method still what we're going to use? And I have faculty members that say, no, we'll never leave the Socratic method. And you tell them, well, there's another way. That's where the hesitation is. After you've been doing something for 20 years, 25 years, supposed to be successful, where your students get A's, and you say, well, that means they know the stuff. And that's the way you measure, you hesitate. Plus, to tell you the truth, it kind of puts you out. It opens whether you're teaching good or not. I remember giving a demonstration to the faculty about clickers. I gave the students the case. We spent the whole class in one case that they read the day before. The first 35 minutes, we talked about the case. We did the issue, we did everything. I asked, any questions? No. I gave them a clicker test, 35%. So what's the problem? The students, or is it my teaching? So am I I'm showing that maybe I'm not that good a teacher. So those are the things that people hesitate. I don't want to show it. I don't want to show like you say when I correct an essay, right? The highest grade gets an A, but my test only measured, here's what I taught, here's what I measured, and the test had nothing to do with what I taught, but still there's an A. But those things are hard, and this is where the hesitation. We don't want people to see it.
And strongly written multiple choice questions can get pretty deep. What it cannot get, that an essay can get, is constructing a response or an argument. So essays have a lot of strength, and you do want to see how students construct something. But objective questions, you could have, something that they need to read and analyze, and then you can have 5 or 6 questions associated with that case or what they just read or that kind of set. And you can have them go through issues, rules, what about if this, how would that change things? You can have very difficult common error responses and really get at that, and you can get more at that because then you have many more questions rather than one single case. You can actually get a better sense of how they're doing at issue spotting because you've got more questions, you've got more data points. Now what you don't get with multiple choice is constructing a response. And that is also important. So I'm not saying take away, but there is valid reason to use multiple choice in addition to essay. So is another. And then did you want to add as well?
Oh, he sort of mentioned the hesitation that I was going to mention, which is that faculty don't want to report up to the administration which learning outcomes their students are succeeding on, which they're not succeeding on. Faculty want the freedom to teach what they want to teach in their class in a given semester. Faculty want the freedom to spend the whole semester. Contracts faculty, some want to not teach the UCC. If we require faculty to establish learning outcomes and then we're checking, that creates a whole level of administrative oversight that today's law faculty, we're not used to.
Well, don't you think too, it kind of goes back to K through 12 and the nightmare that K through 12 is right now with standardized testing.
I do.
It kind of goes down that path, and
it sounds
K through 12 was proving that this is a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm. And so this sounds an awful lot like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be that resistance camp. There's going to be the don't mess with my class resistance camp. There's going to be the I don't want to do that, even if they think they're not bothered by the K through 12 mess and that doesn't resonate. And they don't care if their administration is looking at their teaching because they're quite confident that they're doing what they're supposed to do. They might not want to do the work.
Right.
So I think there's a whole mess of resistance and hesitation.
And there's a whole nother level of that, which is a purely process-driven resistance. So if you think about the different ways, so in order to assess whether or not programmatically we're meeting our learning outcomes, we have to decide what we want those learning outcomes to be. So the process to get there, to oversimplify, is you get buy-in by building consensus, show how many faculty go, ooh, let me attend several 4-hour afternoons arguing about what the most important learning outcomes are. Or you have some small group of people develop it and you run the risk of not getting buy-in because they aren't invested in it, right? And if they feel like it's being imposed. So it's a long process and it's going to be slightly painful, and people don't really want to venture down that road.
Mm-hmm. So
Let me quickly share this with you. I mean, you are correct, and I apologize because it goes back to what he said about the ABA. My school was the first school that was visited after they passed the new guidelines in October, and they visited us in November. We're the first school. So we've been at it, discussing student outcomes for 3 years. Trying to get consensus, doing all this stuff. A lot of things that a lot of schools are starting now. We have to do that because the ABA is coming. And they said, we're going to assess your this, you're going to have institutional learning outcomes, as well as classroom learning outcomes. It's easy. So there were a lot of surveys. And going back to what you were saying, the faculty was asked training on learning outcomes. We had oodles of training what learning outcomes are, how you do them, and define what your learning outcomes are. And the faculty defined them. And the Office of Assessment put them all together. Then the dean collected the syllabus of every faculty member. And guess what he found? There is no match between what I'm saying I'm going to do and what I'm doing. So you guys start thinking, so how do I monitor this? You can have a faculty member that says, I'm going to teach them how to think. By the end of the course, they would know how to distinguish between codes. By the end of the course, I would have them analyzing this and doing this or that, but are they doing that? We're doing it. You know? Right. So that's where all this hesitation comes. It's supervision from the top. How about my ranking, non-tenured faculty?
Right.
Do I have to start doing this? Do I have to start assessing 5 times, 10 times? Do I have to get 10 tests? And I'm not tenured? Are they going to be watching me at the end? Or
Right.
Yes, I got things to do. And on top of that, they're watching me. What if it turns out that it doesn't measure up? So that's the problem. And believe me, sir, we've gone through this because we're the first school.
Next year.
So
We just went through it in February.
see, I kind of find it funny when I see in the listserv, we're going to meet to develop learning outcomes. I say, oh my God, God bless you. I still don't know what learning outcomes is.
Well, so I think that leads in, so we can help. And that's why we're having the session today, to show you what we really believe is a core value that we bring to our schools is through our categories, rubrics, and reporting feature. It allows you guys to tackle those things. Once you come up with your learning outcomes, and you'll see in a few slides, but how it can all make it a little bit easier for you guys and take away some of the mystery behind it.
And before I jump straight into the software, I do want to address, I know that you brought up the K through 12, saying that the model doesn't work. I want to emphasize that being able to associate learning outcomes to a curriculum is used beyond K through 12. You look at medical school programs and their accreditation body is very strict and has been making them do this for years. Pharmacy schools, same thing. Nursing, same thing. What do you need to become a medical professional, a nurse, pharmacist, dentist, etc.? You better believe that they have criteria outlined because they want to make sure that that doctor is not going to kill someone. We want to make sure that this lawyer is properly ready to, practice and is not going, it could still, it's not going to necessarily kill someone, but it's definitely dependent on their life, right? Depending on if they're a trial lawyer or what they're doing. They're representing someone. So you want to make sure people are practice ready. And so it's not just in kind of K through 12 education that this is done. This is done across the industry. And so how our software works, and I know many of you are familiar, so I'll go super fast, but basically a faculty member or an administrator or someone uses our web platform and creates some sort of assessment. This can be your traditional secure exam, final, or it could be your take-home exam, it could be, your brief, experiential learning, quiz, whatever you assess, you can pretty much do. I can't think of an assessment you can't do in our platform. In this example, it's a secure exam, so the student then downloads it or gets the instructions for their take-home or whatever it is securely on their device. Of course, since it's associated with their course and their exam ID number, it's stamped with their anonymous grading number. They only can access exams they have access to. And then they go ahead and take the assessment or do the assessment, write their brief or whatever they do. And then at the end, they upload it. The faculty can then go in, grade online, see how they've done, be able to assess, and get feedback on how they're doing. And again, I know that we've emphasized this, but assessment doesn't just mean, we want only the objective portion. We want to be able to understand everything that they're doing, objective, subjective, experiential, everything overall to get an overall picture of how the student's doing. Because it's possible that a student may be really good at writing essays and really bad at multiple choice questions. right? But they still might understand the topic. We want to get an overall point of view of how that student is doing, or maybe they're struggling with a specific skill across the board, whether it's essay, multiple choice, torts, criminal law, whatever, they're struggling with a certain skill. And the way that we do this is we have categories. So you can actually create a learning any category is anything you want to measure. It can be a learning outcome, which is a student-focused idea. Students will be able to do something, whether it's spot issues or whatever, successful, it's a measurable way a student can do something. It could also be, you know, I want to say, well, I'm teaching tort, so I also want to understand how well are they understanding assault or battery, etc. And I can make a tree structure. Anything you want to measure can be there. So you can have your program outcomes, but then faculty can have flexibility to be able to put in outcomes that they want to measure. When it comes to creating the question, they can just create a new question, and they could associate that question with however many learning outcomes they want. So they can associate it maybe with a program outcome. They can associate it with something that might go across the board, right? Issue spotting. That can be relevant to a number of different courses. So now they can associate it with that. But they might also say, you know, this actually relates to unlawful homicide. I want to know that as well. So you can associate it with however many. We recommend, you know, at a minimum of 1. Maximum, we don't recommend more than 5 initially getting started, because that's a lot to do. But it's not that hard. What am I getting at in this question?
Bev, if you back up to the last slide, if you notice on the left-hand side, the questions are organized by folder structure and also by category. So as you tag your questions with the category, and let's say the program head has created the bank of questions, and they've tagged the learning outcomes to those questions, and now the faculty member said, okay, I'm ready to give an exam. You can go right to the questions by category tab, and then just say, all right, I'm going to do intentional torts. I'm going to grab some questions from there, grab some questions from property, and now you're creating your exam based on the categories or the learning outcomes that you want to apply to that particular assessment. So it's a very useful tool in guiding the professors. It kind of helps take away that mystery of, am I really testing them on the right things?
Absolutely. And actually speaking about objective questions, because oftentimes like this kind of tag where you've got a couple of things is much easier on objective question. An essay is usually assessing a lot of different outcomes and a student's doing a lot in a 1 hour or 2 hours, you know, however long they're taking to write the essay, so it might not be so easy just to say all of these things they're doing. But objective questions are super hard to write well, right? It is hard to write a strong, valid objective question. So if anyone is willing to share their objective questions, or if anyone is interested in also having, getting or receiving collaborative questions, please reach out to us. Our contact information is in the end. We do want to foster that conversation. And so at the end, you'll see our contact information. Jot it down. Please do contact us. And so the other piece, though, goes, so you've got your objective question, easy to tag, easy to grade, right? I know what I'm assessing. But what about...
the system grades them for you, so that's the easy part.
Yeah, objectives graded automatically, of course. But what about all of my other types of assignments, my experiential learning assignments, right? I still need to outline what I want them to accomplish, what I want them to do. My essay assignments, right? My take-home exams. I bet you guys can name 100 different types of exams that are not objective questions, right, or assessments. I'm saying exam and assessment interchangeably. They're not. I get that exam is a final, but I'm using them interchangeably. But what you can use is a rubric. So I guess I want to ask everyone, or someone, what is a rubric? What do you think of, or what do you know a rubric to be? And when willing, yes?
Well, it's setting out what you're trying to achieve. So your learning outcomes are related to what you're trying to get from them, and so it's the tool you use to go through and make sure that they've done everything that you're wanting them to from that assessment.
Absolutely. So that's a great description. It's really an outline that clearly outlines exactly what you want students to achieve. That's it. It's an expectation of what you want them to do. And if you want them to do something, it should be on your rubric. So writing is a skill. And you may want to grade on writing, right? You want to grade on how clear the argument is. That's valid to put as a dimension in your rubrics just as IRAC is, right? It's not that it's meant to be inflexible. It's meant to be a clear idea of your expectations of what this specific assignment is meant to achieve. What do you want students to do at the end? Outline it out. You can write it down on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to look like this model. But basically what you're saying is this is what I want them to achieve, and how well did they achieve it?
It also creates consistency. So, I mean, we get it where law students are constantly trying to challenge us. And I'm sure you guys get it as well with essays. You know, when you're just grading by paper, some of the comments might be vague, you know, elaborate a bit more on this point, or this sentence doesn't really make sense, or you didn't fully explain this. The nice thing about a rubric is it creates a consistent method of how the student is being graded. So when they come to you and they want to argue with you about their score, here you have something to show and say, these are the things I'm grading you on, and these are the areas that you hit and you didn't hit. So it helps you guys a little bit when you're cornered about the outcome of the exam.
And something to think about as well, right, is if you ever wanted, if you got really sick and someone had to grade your assignment for you, could they? Have you clearly outlined what you wanted students to do? And so faculty even could potentially, if there's someone maybe there to help them, if they could outline how they want to grade clearly to someone else could grade. If you think about bar exams, they need consistent grading, right? We don't want someone grading really one way and then looking for one thing, and someone else grading another way, and like, there's not consistency in scores, right? There has to be consistency, and this is a way for consistency. It's not meant to limit, it's meant to define. And the way that our rubrics work is the same way that it works for questions. You are able to identify what you want students to do. Things can be weighted differently. So issue spotting might be not worth as much as the analysis piece, right? Things can be weighted differently, but then you can associate each piece with what students are actually doing. That learning outcome piece can be associated. So you can associate it with the program outcome, even though each faculty could have their own individual rubric. What they're assessing, as long as it relates back to what the program wants to do. So it doesn't take away from faculty individuality, and it's important that you're telling faculty that this is not to grade you as a faculty member. This is for us to make sure that students are understanding overall and are practice ready, and it's for us to make sure if there's areas of improvement overall in our program that we can make them. It's not we are grading you, and that's a big distinction.
And the nice thing to highlight about the rubric, and I know we talk about grading essays, but we've also seen this used in the clinical approach. So in moot court, there's a feature that allows peers to grade one another. So the professor creates the rubric, everyone brings their computer to school, the rubric's right on the screen, and you can grade your peers. So that the professor, when they go to do their grade, now you can pull an average, or now you can see if the students are kind of thinking along the same wavelength as you as far as what was presented in that moot court course. So that's really exciting to see how our law schools are starting to experiment with different ways of testing.
Can you tell us about how many law schools have adopted this? And how long it's been around? And what their experience is?
So for rubrics, it's been around about a year. We have a mixture of schools that have adopted. But I don't have like a number off the top of my head.
I would say like 10 to 15% of our schools have adopted it, of our law schools have adopted it.
Some of the law schools in the country, what do you mean when you say our schools?
Of our client
clients.
base, so those that are using ExamSoft.
Gotcha.
So there's definitely adoption, and we'll talk about kind of the grading next, which I think kind of leads right into grading, but it actually is pretty simple. So basically, the student's response, whether it's a brief, if they took a secure exam, they uploaded a response, is on the left, and then you kind of are able to see a condensed version of your rubric right here on the right, and you're able to grade. So you can click as they've achieved certain pieces. The eyes, if you hover over it, will tell you all the information of what you put in this condensed rubric. You can add comments. It's really actually very simple to grade. And I know that UNT presented today, and they talked about how their faculty member spoke, was saying how easy it was for him because, it took so much longer before, and now he's able to click. It weights things how he wants it to be weighted. It calculates the total. He can just focus on adding comments and providing the feedback directly to students. And so I'm going to go through this fast because we've really talked about this overall, but really rubrics close the loop, right? It really outlines what you want students to accomplish. You're able to associate it with what really they should be able to do by the end of your course, or even farther, what they can do in terms of preparing for the bar, what they need to be able to do to be practice ready, what you want them to achieve. And then you're able to consistently grade students and give students real feedback because it's related back to what you want them to achieve. And that goes straight into our reports, which kind of outline that information, give you details on what you can see.
So the reports really provide information, vital information to your main stakeholders. So not just the students, not just the professors, but as you can see, it involves program directors, and also the reports give you meaningful data to provide to your accrediting agency, that accrediting body. So when they come to visit and you're saying, well, yeah, we're tracking learning outcomes, and yeah, we're testing them. Now you have a report. Now you can give them something right in the hand to say, this is how our students are measuring up. And you can go back to Standard 204. These are our strengths, these are our weaknesses, and these are what we're doing to implement changes. So first off is our student report. Those categories that you see along the bottom of the report are the same ones that you tag to your questions or your rubrics. Whatever you're tagging in the portal is available in that report. It gives the student an overview of how they did compared to their members in the class. And then there's nice little illustrations that help identify areas of weakness and areas of strength. So again, it's helping them focus and hone in during their study time. They're not spending all that time on one topic.
And this is customizable. So I've heard schools, hey, we don't want to give them the average because they're so hyper-competitive already, and we don't want to drive that further. So they're like, we're not giving them the average, we're giving them their own performance on these outcomes. That's all they need to know. Others say, well, we want them to see the average because maybe this is a hard topic, and they need to know that they actually are doing above their peers because that actually signifies something. You could release back all of your multiple choice questions, right? It might be a low stakes quiz. Maybe you're okay with that. I want to release how they did on those questions. I want to release my rubric with all my comments, or just my comments. You have the freedom to release what you want, but at least with the outcomes, you can release that back without identifying exactly how you graded if you don't want to, without identifying exactly what the questions are, and that gives them something actionable. They know what was expected of them and what they didn't live up to and what they did. And then they can focus rather than not knowing exactly where to focus. They are given something where they can take ownership and they know where they can improve. This is helpful for academic support as well.
So then also you have your faculty report. Our system does support anonymity. So let's say the faculty member is looking at this report. In the bottom section we see the student names. It can show just their exam number. But then if an academic support member wanted to, remediate with the student, they can go into the database, pull the same report, and they might have access to see the student names. So it really helps them to better support the students when they come in to have those conversations. Bless you. The faculty report also gives you a high-level overview of student performance on that particular exam. So again, your learning outcomes are summarized in the report. It identifies what we consider the at-risk students, so that's your lower 27 percentile. And then it also shows the question performance. I like the question performance piece because let's say it's a very long exam and you don't want to go into each individual question to see how the students did and how the responses panned out against the course. You can use this as your overview to identify which questions you want to go back and visit. So if it was a question that you really wanted to see if a student caught it, one that kind of tricked them a little bit, and you see that there wasn't a consistent spread in the way they responded to the distractors, then that will give you an inclination that I need to go back and look at that question. If everyone selected question A and they totally passed all the other options, then maybe there's something wrong with the answer choices that I put in, or maybe my question really isn't clear enough for the students. So I really like to use this report as a starting point into investigate further on the exam.
I was going to say, it can even tell you if you miskeyed something, right? I might miskeyed a question and I realized that almost all of my top students picked this for response. and like, I didn't pick that as right. And it's really easy just to adjust in our
Adjust the
system.
scoring, yeah.
But, you know, it gives you real feedback. And these lines, where it's a sequence 1, 2, 3, well, this is for objective like questions in this example, you can get that same data on each row of the rubric. In addition to the learning outcomes across exams, across multiple choice, or on that exam, on your multiple choice and on your essay, you can get each line of the rubric and the frequency that you gave, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The frequency of the top performers versus the bottom performers on that line. Same kind of data.
And then we also have our longitudinal report. So this is the report that's going to be really useful to your accrediting body. And it allows you to get an overview over time of student performance. The report allows you to use our filters so you can do a date range. Let's say you want to see how your students in 2014 did versus your students in 2015. Pick the dates, run the report. Let's say you want to see how your 1L students are performing. Then you can select those students within the group. You can filter them out by their groups. And you can even go as deep as the course level in sections. So if you've got a couple of different sections for the same course and you feel that, you know, the students are not getting the same outcome within that course, then you can run this report by section and then compare and contrast and really find, you know, what do we need to work on.
So to take this back to ABA standards, in case you kind of can tell what we believe in, we believe that direct assessment, that what students are doing should drive understanding of, you know, what's going on. And that should pull down to get what you need for accreditation, to get what you need to understand what's going on in the program. You as faculty are assessing students frequently. We talked about how you guys are assessing students frequently. What we believe in is that if you can take all of those assessments you're doing and with very little work, just tag what it relates to, you can pull data across time on all of those assessments. And maybe you want to only look at your quizzes or your exams. You can do that. You can take out low stakes if you want. You can look at it overall. We have lots of ways to parse it. But you can see how students are understanding in your course, and someone from administration or from the program or something like that can pull how students are doing over time. Why do more work? You are assessing frequently, and you are required to assess frequently if you're not. Why not associate it with what students should be accomplishing?
So, very elegant, and I'm thrilled that you're showing this, so thank you for that. The ABA, I think, cares little whether we've demonstrated with teaching students whether the toward an intentional infliction of emotional distress over time. So in other words, there's got to be a way to abstract this out to the larger learning outcome.
Yeah.
And so that I suppose to me is really what the question I've got. This, I think, professor level is phenomenal because I can tell one year to the next, did I actually improve on that lecture that I gave that turned out not to work out the first time. At the program level, I've got to sort of take this course and feed it into a bigger.
So all of this is just an example of some outcomes, and honestly, you know, I've asked permission, but so far I think everyone's kind of keeping their outcomes to themselves.
Definitely.
In terms of there's a lot of the, like, we put all this hard sweat and work, and so far I haven't seen collaboration across there. So I can't actually pull any sort of programmatic outcomes, but this I can outline in a traditional choice class.
And the nice thing about our categories is that, I mean, we have people that have thousands of categories. Like, we have not reached a limit yet. Some schools are really tracking every aspect. So to your point, if you know what outcomes you're tracking for the ABA, you can add that as one of the outcomes to the exam. So that way, when you're filtering your report, maybe you're only pulling your ABA learning outcomes. So you can definitely filter out for particular categories. You don't have to do all of the categories.
Exactly. So it's based on whatever categories you put in is what data you can get out. And what's cool about this is if you deliver your assessments through ExamSoft and you build a couple different ways, right? We've got many different ways you can deliver it. You can actually tag after the fact.
Yeah, they're retroactive, which is nice.
So, law school establishes its broad institution-wide learning outcomes. Those can get plugged into ExamSoft. Like, those would get, let's say those would get plugged in first, then individual faculty members come in. And so the way I distinguish is like learning outcomes than learning objectives for a particular course that help you achieve the learning outcomes. would those be like subcategories under the broad categories? And so then if if my outcome is to teach rule synthesis, and maybe that fits broadly under the law school's legal analysis learning outcome. If I click rule synthesis, will that work its way back to legal analysis? And then can my institution plug in its broader learning outcomes and get a report like this?
Sure. You have flexibility. I mean, it's not going to auto-select, but you can select down the tree. You can build it in a tree structure, and you can choose whatever outcomes you want. Or if you choose a lower level and they want to say, okay, well, I want to look for this lower level. I want all questions with this lower level. Okay, I'm going to bulk tag all the ones all the way up. They can do that in a few clicks. So they can, if it's connected, you get to design it. That's the beauty of it. You get to design it in a tree. And if you want to have program completely separated and you want faculty to put in their own separate, you can. If you want to kind of say, well, we've actually planned it, and it's actually beautiful that you're planning it with the idea of how it relates and the connectivity. You can design it that way. Again, it's a tree structure, so things are underneath, and you can have, a lot of clients have categories under categories under categories under categories, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to get to the point that you can measure, right? And not necessarily too nitty-gritty, but the point that you can measure it. And if you meet all the things that measure that relate to another category, you've met that next category.
Can you set it up? I'm thinking about dealing with faculty resistance and one particular kind of faculty. I anticipate, I think this is a terrific idea, and it does solve a huge problem, I think, about how to do this programmatic assessment that the ABA is asking us to do. But I anticipate intense resistance at my institution on a lot of levels, but in particular on the, because of the political climate and for a variety of reasons, on the looking at what an individual faculty member is doing and using it. I think we can say until we're blue in the face, this will not be used in a punitive way. People are going to be worried it's going to be used in a punitive way. So can it be, my question is, this is all preface to my question, which is, can it be set up so that it doesn't get down to that granular individual faculty member level, except if for the individual faculty member's own use in the course?
Sure. So basically what you can do, some schools will tag it to a specific faculty member as well. We'll tag the questions to a faculty. Don't create that as a tag. Don't tag it back to the individual faculty member. Use it so that you can run the programmatic assessment. And you can make user right. So I may only have access as a sort of user to only see these categories that relate to programmatic assessment, and I'm not able to see anything else. So I don't know how the faculty did on their granular stuff. I don't even have access to see it.
Can you assure the faculty that?
Yeah.
How?
Sure.
Because somebody has to set it up.
Well, yeah, there's user permission, so this kind of goes into the delivery side, but we do have the administrative side. So you can set read-only rights, so you can give, let's say you have a committee that's creating your questions for you, and you don't want the professors to tinker with the questions, you don't want them to, like Beverly mentioned, see all of the categories. You can certainly hide those from their view.
That's not the direction that this is asking about. You need to flip that on its head. It's not keeping the faculty from seeing. Right. It's faculty wanting to keep administration from seeing how individual faculty are.
And so I think what you have to let them know, and I think this is something that we can have as a joint conversation with individual schools. Each school, if you go to the next slide, kind of has dedicated support and account management. Every school has their own account manager to help them through this process. We recognize that this is not going to change overnight. We recognize that this is going to be difficult. Once you've got things established, once you kind of have it in the system, it's really easy. I mean it. Once schools have this established and they figured out what they want to assess and how, it is really easy. But figuring that out is a challenge. And we are here to help. And so if faculty want to have a demo, if we want to set up a conversation to have faculty have questions for us and administration and everyone to kind of vet that, we will do that with you.
Absolutely.
So going on kind of to the next slide, because I know we're running out of time, and I want to give a little bit of what to look forward to. This is just going to be a brief glimpse But we are looking at enhancing our printing functionality and more assessment capability. And when I say along the lines of more assessment capability, we are working on a jointly created assessment functionality with one of the biggest players in legal education. Really cannot say more, but we're really excited about what's to come. And it's going to be to help you with all of the changes that are happening in legal education. So we're very excited, but I really can't say more than that. But we also are really excited about our assessment conference in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, so that last year I know there was a waiting list of over 60 people trying to get into the conference that we're not able to because we're at capacity. And next year we will have more capacity. And so we're excited to kind of foster these conversations further. We're excited to hear what people have to say, to be able to share with what people are doing in order to answer these questions, because these are problems not just in legal education.
Absolutely.
Those same questions come up in medical schools. Those same questions come up in dental schools. This is not a unique situation, and it's really cool to learn how other industries have done it. And they all do it a little bit differently. They all focus on something a little bit different, but they all have a lot that we can learn from. So we hope to see you in Big D. Yes?
Can I target a question at those of you who have had the ABA come by recently?
Sure.
Is this description of something the ABA would have found? I'm going to assume it is, but in other words, based on your experience with them,
No, it's closer to what you think. You have to develop institutional outcomes.
Okay, so abstract.
So you say you have to show our students from the first year to the third year.
Yeah.
This is our goal. We're going to have students that are going to do this, that are going to, by the time they graduate, we have this and this, and that's one part that is a lot of fighting about. But that's the easy part. Then you have to have a curriculum that describes with the mapping. So the curriculum committee was the one involved in saying in the curriculum you have these courses, and to meet, for example, one of the student outcomes, institutional, was by the time our students graduate, they will write better. I mean, let's simplify it. Now, we have this course, and this course, and this course that teaches.
So we could use this and plug in an assessment of writing skill.
I
Professor
think
McGrady's
by
answer.
listening to the young ladies, I mean, I'm learning as much as you do about ExamSoft, but just talking about without ExamSoft, to your question, that's what the ABA was looking for.
Okay.
So you have to say, experiential learning. By the time our students graduate, they will have acquired experience, right? Then, that's an institutional one. Then you have to say, we have a trial advocacy class. We have a trial practice class. We have, because the ABA actually requires so many credits of this, so many credits of that. So if you say we're going to have our students write better, where is it? And the problem is, this is where the resistance comes. Which faculty that teaches sports, contracts is going to say, well, I'm teaching my students to write. So if they use that in the assessment, do they want everybody else to know? It's a risk. So but to answer your question again about what the ABA is looking for. Now, what she's saying is that in the courses, do I understand correct? In the course, you can write these outcomes in the test and say, in ports, right, I'm going to teach them how to write. I'm going to teach them how to think. And this is how I assess it. And that's what you keep track of. Am I correct?
We keep track of all of it.
But individuals.
No, overall, you can run it. You can put in your program assessment, you can put in your course.
So the question she asked is, suppose I do that. Suppose I say, I'm convinced, I think that's your question, and that's my question too. Okay, I buy into it, right? I'm going to go crazy, and I'm going to put all this stuff in my class. What if I don't get to it? What if is the dean going to use that later to say, oh, wait a second, when I'm looking at your rubrics, and when I'm looking about your goals and objectives and the assessments that you made, right? You didn't fulfill this that you said. I think that's your concern. Is there access from the top to that? Because, you know, number one, we all have to learn that you cannot meet all the student outcomes. You may have a class that only meets 3. You don't have to teach them, you know, you can't teach a property how to write, you know, how to, you see what I'm saying? So you may pick only one outcome, but if you pick that outcome and you tell the dean, and you say in ExamSoft, that's our question, I believe. Okay, of all these 30 outcomes that the school has, right? I'm going to have this one and this one and this one, and I'm going to assess it in all my exams. I'm going to assess this and this and this, right? And then at the end of the year, I didn't do that. Can they use that? I think that's the question.
So I think before we get there, I don't know if you're answering it or if you have another question.
Well, I don't, so I'm actually surprised to hear you say, we went through site visit in March. I went through site visit the March before because I'm crazy, and moved jobs. These standards don't go into effect until 2016.
Actually, some of them are
And
already.
there's, so if you're interested in how, there's actually a whole bunch of implementation documents on the ABA website. And to be honest, so for reasons that are bizarre, in my career, I've now done, I think, 8 ABA site visits.
Oh, wow.
And so I had done more than the chair of our site visit team had. And, but I think the thing is they're going into effect in 2016, and I don't think they're going to expect a school that they visit in 2016 or even 2017 to have this fully formed programmatic assessment.
Oh, no, you're
And I
correct,
think
but you
what-
still have to show you're doing it, though.
Right, so that's why the implementation documents are really helpful.
Yes, absolutely, you're correct.
And so I think if you show that you're in that
Yes.
process of
Absolutely.
figuring this out, I think that's what you're gonna do.
No, I'm correct. If I sounded otherwise, I apologize.
No, no,
You're absolutely, but you have to have something.
Right, exactly.
You know, this is, now they're gonna come out and they say they wanna look at the implementation. You're correct.
Well, and I want to also add in that there's more to, it's not yes, there's the letter of the law. The letter of the law says you have to have like the learning outcome piece, right? And you have to have lots of assessments and you have to assess learning outcomes. It doesn't say that you have to assess the learning outcomes on the assessments you're doing on the course. But the spirit is that your assessments are actually assessing what you want them to do on the course. So while it doesn't go to the letter, it goes to the spirit. And to be honest, having a separate way of assessing learning outcomes as something separate is just extra work. You're already assessing. Now, in terms of the culture of the faculty being concerned, I think that that's a combination of a couple of things. I think it's a combination of fear. So setting expectations, just like you set expectations with students on assignments, just like you set expectations when they're going in for assessments. Any sort of expectation setting, we need a level set. We need to say, hey, look, we're getting started. This is not a grade on you. This is an understanding of our program. This is what we believe these courses and what we think are going to be assessed. We could be wrong. We may need to change something up. We're just trying to get initial data. What you can then say as well is, hey, we're not going to look at your specific course outcomes. We're going to set up these people to only have access to view the programmatic outcomes. Yes, they're going to be able to see the programmatic outcomes across courses and things like that. So potentially, right, there's that fear that they might judge. But I think if you level set, you say, hey, this is not what it's intended to do. What this is intended to do is this. And here is also what it can do for you in your classroom. What it can do to allow you to take risks. What it can do to allow you to know what students know. What it can do to help you automate grading. What it can do to make grading faster. What it can do to make grading more consistent. You can tell them what it does for them, but the benefits they get. I've got faculty come to me directly to use it. You know, they're not even taught, it's not even administrators making them. It is faculty excited for something to ease their grading.
And a lot of times that's the starting point, especially with a lot of our clients. The faculty come and say, we want to try something new. And as Bev mentioned, each account has a dedicated account manager. And we got a few of you in the room, so you can attest to it, that we do take the time to vet out the problems, work with the professor to find what works for your school. Because, I mean, we spoke a lot about hesitations with regard to the accreditation standards, but face it, you have limited resources, so a lot of the onus is on you. You've got limited time, limited budget. I mean, there's so many other obstacles that you face. So we really take a consultative approach to work and see what would fit best for your program and your school. And once you have a faculty member that sees it and can attest to how it worked for them, then we can bring on another smaller group, and then another smaller group. And I think we get hung up on the idea that we need to do this as a whole. We need to figure everything out right now, and we get frozen. We get stuck. And the nice thing about the categories feature is something that you can change, you can add on, you can go back and revisit your questions and then tag them with something else, and all the reports are automatically regenerated based on that tagging. So, you know, we don't want you to get caught up in this grandiose idea that you need to do everything now and have all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted as soon as you start using it. No, let's start with the bare bones and then build up from there. And I think it's a lot easier for you to get the buy-in if you just start on a basic level and then roll it up from there.
And when faculty have success, they share it. You know, not all faculty, there are faculty that are really hung up in the way they do things. Absolutely. And are really stubborn. This is not all faculty are clamoring for this. If all faculty were clamoring for this, we wouldn't have a problem, right? We know that there's the resistance. We know. But we also know that there's a lot of success, and if you can get a lot of success, more people adopt. And it's people you don't expect to adopt. I've got someone who's terrified of technology, and, you know, was really hesitant, but then realized the benefits and adopted. But guess what? They were not the first person to adopt. They were one of my last people to, you know, like, not last, I mean, but most recent adoptions, right? Because they had just heard so much stuff they couldn't ignore. They had heard so much from colleagues they couldn't ignore. They were scared, and they've been doing it, and they love it, you know? So it's not unless you've got the ability that you have a certain culture at your school, it's not something that all schools can just implement all at once. Some schools can. Some schools have the culture. If your school doesn't have the culture, we'll help you with that. If your school does have the culture, we'll help you with that. We realize each institution's different, and we customize.
Is it separatable from your exam software?
Is it separatable from your exam software?
Yeah. So let's say somebody doesn't use your exam software, can they use the rubrics portion?
Sure, you could create a rubric, a standalone rubric, grade paper. As long as you've got the anonymous grading number set up, you could grade on a standalone rubric online. Sure, you'd have to have assessment. You'd lose some of the benefit of having to have paper and.
Well, no, you don't have to have paper. You could use a different exam software.
Yeah.
So
for take-home exams, for example, where the student is not in soft test, let's say you give them, 24 hours to complete something or a week to complete something. We do have a piece of the platform that supports them uploading a document anonymously, and then you can take the rubric that you've created to grade those anonymous assignments that have been uploaded.
And you can have a freestanding rubric as well.
So I'm not sure I understood the answer then. My law school, let me just be specific. My law school uses Exam 4.
Okay.
Could we do all of the stuff you've talked about today? Could you sell us this piece of ExamSoft, even though we use Exam 4 on our exams?
We could, correct. But you will be paying for the other piece of the software as well, which is the secure lockdown. I mean, yes, like in the platform, it includes that piece.
So we can just parse it out for just.
So they're not separate.
I mean, you can turn it on, and you don't have to use it, right? You don't have to use that piece, but you are paying for that piece as well. So it's
not standalone.
Now, if there's something that if that's kind of something you want to look into, we're happy to have further conversations with you. So talk to us. Maybe there's something we can look into and only look at the rubrics piece. But we'll talk to you. We'll figure out if there's something. But typically, I mean, you have the access to it, so most people use that piece as well. There's no benefit not to.
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys. We hope we sparked some creative juices flowing.
And I hope you guys collaborate.
It was a great conversation. Thank you guys.
Can they still?